Well, I can't believe here on the Spector Creative channel we're actually nearing the end of DC Universe Classic / Signature series from Mattel. Of course, the line would continue as Multiverse after I left Mattel, but, well, the toys that I worked on in the Signature series and DCU Classics at retail will always have a special place for me. And the reason we're reaching the end is, well, for pretty much one reason only. Sales were tanking. Sales were basically dropping like crazy, and if we didn't have pre-orders and didn't have subscriptions, there was no way to keep the line going, especially after retail had already closed the door. Online was already the backup, so now the backup of the backup was falling apart. We did show, like every year, the first handful of figures because that's how the development cycle works. They have to be done early, and these are always put out for all of the subscriptions we did on Matty Collector, more or less as bait to show you here's what you'll get if you subscribe to a full year. We even doubled down on the whole bait idea for the third year by showing who the Collect and Connect big figure could be, and because we knew Doomsday was probably the most requested large-scale figure, well, we actually even tripled down on the bait by showing two different versions, showing Doomsday in his green sort of, capture suit and in his full Rage removed green suit as he was in Superman 75 when he killed the Man of Steel, or until he came back. So we showed both versions of Doomsday, noting that if we hit a certain tier for the subscriptions, a low tier, we would be able to get the less tooled containment suit version. But if we were able to hit a larger subscription number of tier 2, we'd be able to get the Unleashed Doomsday, with the idea that then the containment suit one we might release at a convention down the line, because he had less tooling. So we put out all of our bait, our first 4 figures, our 2 Doomsdays, and we didn't even hit tier 1. We barely hit 50% of what we needed to get to tier 1. That's how low subscriptions were for the third year. And whether it was character selection or just fatigue, whatever it was, not only would Doomsday have to be shelved, but the entire year was going to have to be shelved because we didn't get enough subscribers to have a full year in the third year, and more or less had to cancel the annual line. But because we'd already tooled up the first 4 figures and they were basically done, there was no reason not to release the ones that were shown as bait. So we basically had a very truncated year. And instead of having a figure every month as part of a subscription, we just moved the figures to quarterly releases and mailed them out, or rather offered them to fans like that, without a subscription. Now, there was the whole big oops real quick before I jump in. I realized when I was reviewing the last video, I completely forgot to do Fire. I don't know why, I don't know how I left her out, but I did all the other figures from the second year, from 2013, but I completely left off Maria. So let's do her real quick. So Fire was a 2013 figure, not a 2014 figure. She shipped in your standard DC Signature Series box with her flame effect and her awesome original art on the back, which, man, I still miss all that great art we got to do for the Signature Series. And, of course, the white shipper box. Fire and her counterpart Ice were part of one of my favorite versions of the Justice League, Maxwell Lord / Batman's Justice League International, which was also Guy Gardner and Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, sort of a high time on the line. As far as Fire figures, Mattel had done her before. We had done her in the Justice League Unlimited line, partnered with Jon Stewart and Ice. In fact, we re-released this set in the orange carded series because the purple one was so hard to find, and even did a redeco of Fire in her kind of flame-on version, basically, following up on what she looked like in the animated series when she used her powers. As far as doing her in the 6-inch line, we did look at whether we should do her in kind of the flame-on version, with, like the, not to be too Johnny Storm there, but, with her body showing her powers visually. And in the end of the day, though, we also looked at a lot of the different non-powered up versions over the years, and the Horseman kind of settled on a modern yet classic version, and then using a flame effect that would attach to her hand to represent her powers, as opposed to doing her completely flamed on, again, if you will. And of course, you can't really do fire without her counterpart Ice, and DC Direct had done this as well, and we definitely had plans. In fact, we showed Ice as one of the teaser figures for 2014. So we'll get to her pretty quick in this video. So yeah, once you start a team, I hate not completing it. And if you did fire, you really had to do Ice, because they just go together. They're partners, shall we say. All right, so to 2014 now, the year that couldn't. Aquaman was our lead figure, and we did this very deliberately, again, because we were trying to, no pun intended with Aquaman, but bait fans to show them how great the year could be by front-loading it with one of the most requested figures, which was the modern sort of hook-armed Aquaman when he went through his revamp in the 90s. And this wound up actually being one of the lowest selling figures in the entire line. I was actually shocked. I figured of all the 2014 figures, Aquaman had the chance of being the best-selling one, especially because I knew there were fans out there that were just Aquaman fans who, collected every Aquaman ever. So, yeah, whether he was his classic look or his new modernized look, Aquaman was definitely a fan favorite, and the fact that he sold so poorly was like, wow, I guess the subscription really can't go through if we can't even sell Aquaman that well. So why does Aquaman have a hook for a hand? Well, reasons. In the 1990s, everyone kind of got a makeover and trying to make characters a little bit more, well, for lack of a better word, toyetic. Honestly, Aquaman sells a lot better as his long hair, shirtless, hook-armed version versus the original orange suit. And because you could do him sort of without his hook and his hook, just like in the animated series, it gave the chance to do different variants of the figure, which, again, we did. Even with the animated line, we had hook arm, we had regular hand, using the long hair, shirtless version that was now more popular, both because of the animated series and his update in the comic books. This is just a version of Aquaman that translates better to toys versus, him in his orange shell spandex suit, shall we say, the classic look. I mean, I'm not against the classic look, and I love that they sort of snuck it into the movie, too. That was definitely a really cool Easter egg. But, Aquaman is Aquaman, and he does have that reputation of, the Saturday Night Live, hey, Aquaman, go talk to the fish. But we did, quite a few versions of him in DCU Classics over the years, and getting to the more badass, 90s comic book version where he looks like he's going to rip your head off instead of talk to the fishies. Well, again, fans were asking for this version for a long time. It was definitely top of the request list. So we put a lot of tooling into him. He had to have, I think, a fully tooled chest and fully tooled arms, or at least one arm plus the lower arm, with the metal and then the hook, as well as the head and the belt and the crotch piece. So he sort of sucked up a lot of tooling in a year that had a very low tooling budget, tooling based on sales, and the less sales, less tooling. I used to also get a lot of letters and comments asking if Aquaman was safe to put in an aquarium. And while I can't endorse this as far as the health of fish, I will say huge props to the Horseman, the way they sculpted him, especially his hair. His hair is kind of flowing as if it's flowing in the water. And I always thought this was a great touch. And he does look great displayed in an aquarium, specifically because of the way his hair is, flowing off to one side, as if he actually is underwater. So yeah, that's the kind of touch the Horsemen give. That's why they're so talented and so great to work with. So there was Aquaman. Yay for not selling. Alright, so as I led off this video with Fire, who was part of the 2013 line, when we did Fire, we knew we were going to do Ice, and we wanted to do her early in 2014, again as a teaser, as bait, to say, hey, see, we are completing the team. We're completing the Fire and Ice, duet, if you will, or duo. Duet is singing. Duo is crime fighting, right? Dynamic duo, Batman and Robin. Oh, we're going to get to Robin in a minute, too. See, look at how it all makes sense. All right, so again, beautiful, beautiful art on the back. And when looking at which version of Tora to do, looking at some of her classic costumes, her modern costumes, and much like Maria, her counterpart with Fire, she has sort of an iced up form like Bobby Drake in Marvel Comics. And because we did Fire already in her human form, it made sense to do Ice also in her human form. Hey, if the line continued, maybe we could have done both versions and done the powered-up version of Fire and Ice. Who knows? Anything's possible if sales had been there. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. So, Ice was sculpted up with her furry boots and her awesome spandex suit, and, and her sort of like crop top that's over a spandex suit, which I always thought was such an interesting look. I think it's one of the only superheroes that has a crop top over a spandex suit. So there was Fire and Ice, ready to team up and battle Justice, form part of the Justice League International, and furthermore use elemental temperature powers to kick butt. Next up in our, what would have been a full 2014 line, but wasn't, is Superboy. Connor Kent Superboy. This was the version of him, at least visually, that was in the comic books at the time when Signature Series was shipping. To kind of tie right in. And for those of you who may not know, it's actually the same Superboy as this version, the one from the 90s, that was a clone of Superman and a little DNA from Lex Luthor, and he came out of a test tube, and, it all got mixed together. And, this is because in the 90s, everything had to be extreme. That was, like the name of the game. And so many characters got these extreme makeovers, and Batman, Superboy, and Aquaman, others, Marvel, all the stuff from Marvel and Image, that was all kind of part of the new extreme look. So Superboy got a new look in the 90s, and it was also kind of a very cool toyetic look for the time because, leather jackets were in and I guess goggles over your eyes and all of that. By the time we got around to the Signature Series, Connor had ditched this look and was just wearing a black shirt with the S shield with jeans because, it's like the laziest superhero costume ever. I'm just going to go buy a Superman shirt. Now, of course, this is actually good from a toy perspective because it makes Superboy look different from Superman versus the Legion of Superheroes version of Superboy that just looks like a smaller, youthful version of Superman. Or also there's the Superman or Superboy Prime version, which also, has the blue and red look, but at least the tubes make him a little different. So, hey, you could have any Superboy you wanted. Mattel did them all. But it is good when visually you can make Superboy look different from Superman to, sell to people, to fans, to collectors, to kids. All right, speaking of kids, Robin, the latest kid sidekick. Ooh, look how I did that. See, that wasn't even scripted, and it worked perfectly. So the latest Robin became the latest figure in the Signature Series, complete with red batarang, and again, awesome art on the back. Now, Robin was a figure we had done quite a lot of. He was part of the Mattel line from Day Zero, meaning even before the Signature Series and before DCU Classics when we just had DC Superheroes, which was just Batman and Superman family, and Robin being a big part of the Batman family. Personally, I'm a Dick Grayson guy. Maybe it's because of the Adam West show, maybe it's just the longevity, but I always liked Dick Grayson, and I am glad that we were able to get to not one but two versions with a head swap there in one of the retail lines. But everyone kind of has their favorite Robin. It's, it's actually very much like the Motu line. Everyone has their favorite version of He-Man. And sort of whatever version of Robin you kind of had as a kid or grew up with tends to be your Robin. And Robin is also very toyetic because he's colorful. He's got, red, black, yellow, and green as a color scheme used in various ways on various versions, whether it's Tim or Damian or, etc. Pick a Robin. So Damian was the latest in a line of Robins, and he was the son of Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul, as in Ra's al Ghul's daughter. So he had kind of a bad streak going, and this wasn't the only version of Damian Mattel would do. In the post-Toy Guru Mattel world, after I left, when they recycled or rebirthed the line into Multiverse, Damian also got a Court of Owls version figure. And, hey, again, it's great. Robin always sells. Robin is one of the best-selling figures. And again, this is why he was part of the bait, one of the first figures in the 2014 line to try to sell it in, because we wanted to chock it full of popular characters to, sell the full year. So, masked or maskless, he's the new Robin in town. And again, if we couldn't sell Robin and Aquaman, then, and Superboy, we're definitely not doing well. So after Robin, the next figure that was scheduled to be released was Miss Martian, and she made it as far as sculpting before, when sales didn't hit the mark for the sub, we had to pull development of her and basically tell the Horsemen to stop because the line wasn't moving forward. But they had fully sculpted Miss Martian, and in fact, if you're interested in owning the only version of her, she's currently being sold on eBay, or there's an auction on eBay with all benefits going to charity, one of Mattel's corporate partners, the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So she would have been the next figure in the line, and hey, you could own the sculpt of her and make a great donation to Make-A-Wish at the same time. Link is in the description below, of course. So as for Doomsday and the rest of the line, well, I think we'll actually move him off to the next video, since we used up so much time talking about Fire and how the sub didn't sell through. So we will get to Doomsday. I know I promised him for this video with the teaser last time, but this time I really, 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 really mean it. Doomsday is coming next.